every passing year, more and more Indian corporate houses and multinational companies are coming to BIMTech for campus recruitment.
I know of companies who initially were very reluctant to come to us. They took one student in the beginning, and now
नहीं आता सर, उसमें नहीं आता।
Good evening, everybody. Kindly take your seats. We'll be starting with the session soon. A warm welcome to all of you to this roundtable on the art and science of developing leaders presented by BIMTech in association with the National HRD Network, Aon Hewitt, and NDTV Profit. I am Manushi Chaudhary, Associate Professor with BIMTech, and I am your anchor for this evening. Before we proceed, I have a small request to make. Kindly put your mobile phones onto silent mode. On behalf of the organizers, we would like to thank each one of you for the overwhelming response for this evening event. We would also like to thank NDTV Profit for coming on board with us as our TV partner for the event. Last year, we conducted similar roundtables in Gurgaon, Chennai, Mumbai, and Kolkata on the theme, The Art and Science of Developing Leaders, with different sub-themes, and received tremendous response from the HR fraternity in all the places. While those deliberations have been compiled and placed on your table for your ready reference, this year we are back again with another series of discussions in collaboration with our partners and panelists. We bring to you this session on the theme, Is Your Leadership Science Right?, where we aim to share research from Aon Hewitt and insights from our experienced business leaders. Before we proceed further, may I now invite on stage our chief guest for the event, the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Sri C. Damodar Rajanarasimha, accompanied by Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Director, BIMTech, Professor K.K. Sinha, Chairperson, Center for Management Development and BIMTech, and Mr. Ajay Soni, please. A warm welcome to you, sir. Mr. Ravikant Reddy, please can we have you on stage as well? Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Director, Birla Institute of Management Technology, to deliver the welcome address. With a master's degree in commerce and doctorate in business management from Agra University, Dr. Chaturvedi has more than 35 years of experience in teaching, research, and administration. As a former director with the All India Council for Technical Education, New Delhi, a statutory body under the Ministry of HRD, Government of India, he has been associated with the formulation of policies, planning, regulation, and control of management education, as well as other disciplines under technical education. He is a founder member and the alternate president of Education Promotion Society for India, a national platform for eminent educationists and education service providers. He is also the president of the Alumni Association of Agra University and the Ranganathan Society for Social Welfare and Library Development. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a matter of great pleasure that in this HR roundtable presented by BIMTech in association with the National HRD Network, Aon Hewitt, and NDTV Profit, we have amidst us some of the leading thought leaders from the Indian business who have been actively engaged in nurturing and developing leaders. Their views and experiences in today's HR roundtable will be extremely relevant since they represent a wide spectrum of leadership in diverse areas. I take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to our chief guest, Sri C. Damodar Raj Narasimha, the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. He has started his political career in 1989 when he fought Andol Assembly elections in He became Minister for school education in Andhra Pradesh in 2007. Currently, he is holding the Ministry of Higher Education and Technical Education. He represents a new generation of politicians in our country, having academic background in civil engineering and law. He has a good understanding of the intricate relationship between technology, business, economic growth, and political governance. We are grateful to him for having taken time out of his busy schedule today to grace this occasion and delve into this extremely pertinent concern. May I request all of you to join with me to give a big applause for Mr. Raj Narasimhan. Thank you, sir. On behalf of BIMTech, I have great pleasure in welcoming the distinguished panelists in HR Roundtable and all those stalwarts of the industry who are part of today's deliberations. Our eminent speakers for the day in alphabetical order include Mr. Ajay Soni, Asia Pacific, practice leader, leadership consulting at Eon Hewitt, which is one of the leading consulting firm of the world in HR domain and leadership domain. Dr. A.V. Vedpuriswar, Director Learning and Development at Cognizant Technology Solutions. Sri Dinanath Harpanhalli, Country Head, Invesco Hyderabad Private Limited. Sri J. Ravikant Reddy, Head HR, NCC Limited. Ms. Radhika Gopalakrishnan, Practice Leader, Leadership Consulting at Eon Hewitt, India Consulting. And Dr. Renu Khanna, Global Head, Leadership Development, Tech Mahindra. They are known in the industry for their dedicated practices, their rich experiences in the corporate world. I welcome them as distinguished speakers in the roundtable and once again request you to welcome them also with a big applause. I'm delighted to share with you that the Vice Chancellor of Osmania University, Hyderabad, Dr. S. Satyanarayana, has also arrived today to attend this roundtable. I can see faces of several stalwarts from the industry and academia, and I can say that who's who of the industry and academia from Hyderabad are present. In today's HR roundtable, the illustrious panelists will help us figure out whether our leadership science is right or not. The topic is relevant for all stakeholders of business, including society, and particularly those who are responsible for leadership development. Although there are thousands of leadership books and leadership gurus to learn from, leadership is not something you can simply read about. It takes more than reading or trying to implement tactics derived from a leadership workshop. It is something that you have to do. It is an experiential science. Leadership is just like swimming. You cannot read about swimming. You have to get in the water, kick your feet, and stroke your arms. Leadership is exactly the same. You have to get in the leadership waters and then try your skills. I remember that recently a very interesting anecdotal book came out on leadership written by Mr. Prakash Iyer. And he has compared leader with the tea bag. And he has given very interesting comparison that unless the tea bag is thrown into hot waters, it cannot create tea. Similarly, unless leaders are thrown into hot waters of the governance, politics, society, they cannot become effective leaders. To become effective leader, you need to face the rough weather. Leaders must exude confidence and competence. They must have, or at least appear to have, a clear sense of mission, purpose, and values, and they must behave in ways that are consistent with their purpose and values. They must demonstrate their commitment to achieving an important goal for their group or organization, and they must show that they are willing to make personal sacrifices to achieve that goal. Leaders must conduct themselves as someone with whom their followers will take pride in being associated. Mahatma Gandhi has been a great leader of the whole world. Had he not been followed by millions of people, he would have not been considered as a great leader for more than 200 years. They must develop and articulate a clear and compelling vision of the future and then generate enthusiasm and optimism that it can be achieved. We need transformational leaders who can deal with people as individuals with unique needs, abilities, and aspirations. They coach, advise, and teach their followers. They listen, communicate, delegate responsibility, empower, encourage, and support people. They question assumptions and the status quo and seek innovative and creative solutions to old problems, encouraging their followers to do the same. Leaders create excitement for finding new perspectives and new ways of doing things. They make their expectations clear and reward performance. In the present business scenario, and I would like to quote one of the well-known business leader from India, Mr. Ratan Tata, has recently spoken about that there is a great leadership deficit in the country which is adversely affecting the current economic growth in our country. The role of a leader should involve better situational understanding and determined execution. Leaders with a strong determination and the desire to excel will surely be instrumental in building a quality organization. Development-oriented leaders have an interesting blend of knowledge, vigor, and determination towards achievement of desired goals. I've been reading a lot in connection with organizing this HR roundtable about various issues related to the leadership. And I have found very interesting contribution made by Mr. Ram Charan, a world-famous consultant, coach, and thought leader. In his book titled Leadership in the Era of Economic Uncertainty, The New Rules for Getting the Right Things Done in Difficult Times, Mr. Ram Charan shares that the leadership challenges in such uncertain environments majorly include cash and credit crunches, shrinking budgets, collapsing markets, sinking workforce morale, disappearing suppliers, and nervous stakeholders. Thus, leadership at uncertain times requires utmost patience and perseverance for understanding the immediate organizational need. In the same book, in chapter 1, titled The Challenges of Managing in a Toxic Environment, he has suggested the 6 essential leadership traits for hard times like the present. Honesty and credibility, the ability to inspire, real-time connection with reality, realism tempered with optimism, managing with intensity, and boldness in building for the future. I would like to quote him from this book. He says, succeeding in a volatile environment requires frequent adjustments at the operational level of the business as well as an occasional disruptive shift. It demands management intensity, a deep immersion in the operational details of the business and outside world, combined with hands-on involvement and follow-through. Even with thousands of scientific studies, because leadership is a very vast subject, and all over the world, academicians and practitioners from the industry, they have been delving into the mystery of leadership for a long time, and thousands of scientific studies have been made. But in spite of those scientific studies and unlimited writings on leadership, the complexity of leadership remains a mystifying concept. Emerging thought and discoveries in psychology, neurology, quantum physics, and complexity theory are providing new perspective that could either illuminate the nature of leadership or illuminate the reasons why leadership is such an elusive process. Let us have a reality check as to whether corporate leaders in India are able to get their leadership science right. I look forward to knowing the views of our distinguished panelists assembled here. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our chief guest for today, Shri C. Damodar Rajnarasimha, is the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Having completed his bachelor's in civil engineering from Osmania University, he joined politics and was elected as member of the Andhra Pradesh Legislative Assembly in 1989 from Andol constituency of Medak district. He was also chairman APSSC Finance Corporation. Between 1989 and 2009, he contested from Andol constituency 6 times and won thrice. During his tenure in the Andhra Pradesh Assembly, he has handled the diverse responsibilities of Minister for School Education, Minister for Marketing and Warehousing, In-charge Minister for Agriculture, and now the additional portfolio of Minister for Higher Education and Technical Education. May I now request the Honorable Chief Guest to please deliver the inaugural address. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming.
Good evening to one and all. Let me first say, it is a great opportunity and an experience. We are in a different field, you are in a different field. I do not know whether I belong to the art of leadership or science of leadership. Mr. Chaturvedi, Director, Birla Institute of Management Technology. Mr. Radha Gopalakrishna, Avon Hewitt Consulting. Mr. Ravikant Reddy, President, National HRD Network. I should say something about Ravikant Reddy. Last 3 days he was sitting with me and guiding me. He taught me the new subject with regard to the leadership, science of leadership. Ajay Soni, Avon Hewitt Consulting, panel members, senior HR thought leaders, CEOs, functional heads, invitees, print and electronic media, and the media partner NDTV. It's my pleasure to be here with all the professionals, friends from all over the country, more particularly from Hyderabad. I thank BeamTech, the National HRD Network, Avon Hewitt, and the NDTV for this initiative of our own table on important topic, the art and the science of developing leaders. I am delighted to bring in my perspectives and my experiences on the topic of art and science of developing leaders. There are 2 issues here. That is the art of leadership, science of leadership. Art of leadership is the inborn quality of a leader. Science of leadership, nurturing the inner potential to become a successful leader. The main question is your leadership science right? Let me not quote the great global thought leaders or bring in the researched inputs. Let me share my experiences as a public representative, both as an MLA, a defeated man, and as a minister also. Leader or leadership development is most read and least understood. Human resources is to bring into practice the innovative and creative ideas. Change is the only thing which is always constant. Change is the only thing which is always constant. Leaders need to scan the environment and adapt the required changes and bring the changes constantly to sustain and succeed the plans. Leadership at the state level, organizational level, functional level, team level, and individual level are important for effectiveness to create value addition. Let me emphasize the subject, that is, state as an organization. Andhra Pradesh state or in future Telangana state. State as an organization, me as an individual, and a leader in the state for leadership development. As a leader, I deal with both masses and classes. That is, general public, employees of both public and private sector, bureaucrats, and next level leaders. As a leader, I expect the leaders should focus on key deliverables to achieve the goals. In my experience, I found in the government, having conflicting thoughts and lack of clarity, habit of procrastination, which is the most common, ego first, activity next. Particularly in the political field, we have a lot of egos. Ego first and activity next. The indifference and the low skill of execution to achieve the goals. Like all of you in corporates, we also prepare a strategy. We also got a budget, deploy the same to achieve the goals, conduct surveys, and also review the same at regular intervals to know the leadership development. To raise the bar of performance, we have identified the competencies that are to be developed to enhance the effectiveness and the efficiency to achieve the goals. The general competencies are collaboration of thought process, aligning of strategies, inspiring commitment, executing goals, emotional balance, and decisiveness. To build these competencies, the state government has initiated certain actions over the last 10 years back. As an organization to take up initiatives, we started Mari Chenna Reddy Institute of Human Resource Development in Hyderabad to identify the competencies required to develop special technical and behavioral models at all levels, making them to attend the competency enhancement programs, coaching and mentoring, creating opportunities to deploy working with empowerment, informal discussion by mentors, coaches, and feedback for improvements, measuring the effectiveness through metrics as mutually agreed. This is a continued process. Effort is on to make them to be ready for future leaders at all levels. The competencies which we could identify further are strategic planning, leading people, managing the change, resourcefulness, doing whatever it takes, being a quick learner. In my view, if these competencies are acquired by an individual, he will become universally acceptable leader in any sector, including the government sector. Let me emphasize on few competencies. Strategic planning, based on the past data, plan versus actuals, mainly to focus on the strength, opportunity to reduce weakness and target and threat. Put desirable plans in the right place, scan present environment, and identify the potential areas. The other competency is leading people. A leader must set a vision. A leader must have passion to achieve vision. A leader must be transparent, absolutely transparent. A leader must be creative, lead from the front as and when there is a requirement and a need. A leader must direct, coach, and mentor the team to achieve the vision. Managing change is other competency. Should have understanding of the people's perception. Should have knowledge of process and system. Should have the ability to influence the others significantly to implement the initiatives. Should also be, most important, should also be people sensitive. Should be people sensitive. These are some of the qualities a leader must possess to achieve the desired set goals. Let me quote Abraham Lincoln. Leadership is the ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute to the effectiveness and success of the organizations of which they are all members. I once again thank the organizers and all the participants. It is an opportunity, it is an experience. You are in a different field, you are in a different field, and it's a rich experience. With this, I wish you all a wonderful and a fruitful roundtable interaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for making it to this event and adding so many perspectives to this discussion. As a token of our gratitude and appreciation, I request Dr. H. Chaturvedi to please hand over a memento to our honored chief guest. Thank you, sir. You may please take your seats there as we progress with the next part of the evening event. As the evening progresses, I'll be introducing the session to you. You also have the complete profiles of all your panelists in the participant kit. Now, may I please request Ms. Radhika Gopalakrishnan to join me on stage for our keynote session. Radhika is the India Leadership Practice Leader for Aon Hewitt. She consults on all facets of organization effectiveness. She is passionate about helping clients leverage their most critical assets, their people. She works with client C-suites in strategic human resource consulting, helping leaders articulate and live their employer brand. She has worked extensively with clients in India, the Middle East, Europe, Southeast Asia, and China on succession planning and leadership evaluation. She is a postgraduate in Human Resource Management from TIS Mumbai and a postgraduate in Economics from the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune. Over to you, Radhika, for the keynote session.
Thank you, Mansi. Good evening, everybody, and thank you. It's an honor to be in front of such an august gathering and to speak of a subject that is so close to all our hearts, because whenever we discuss leadership or the lack of it, it has a huge impact on our own engagement levels, whether in an organization or in the country. So this topic and really what is the science of leadership all about? Before I get into that, let me just take you through what at Aon Hewitt we strongly believe that yes, while some are born great and some achieve greatness, leaders aren't born, they are made. And they're made just like anything else through hard work, as Vince Lombardi, who was a legendary American football coach, said. And if we go from the realm of sports to our corporate world, and we look at really what's the common thread among IBM, General Mills, P&G, the Aditya Birla Group, or Colgate-Palmolive, what all these five have in common is that they were among the world's top 5 companies for leaders. What they do is they don't buy the best business leaders. They actually take pride in building the best business leaders. So we've been constantly researching at Aon Hewitt on what is it that some of these companies are doing better and how do they as an organization seem to continuously sustain and create a competitive edge. So that's when we undertook this entire research on really looking at what is the science of leadership. Is it about knowing what to focus on? And is it about doing it year on year so that it gives you a competitive edge? And that's when we took up this research on what we call the top companies for leaders. At Top Companies for Leaders, this is a research that looks at what is the link between leadership practices and great financial results? How are organizations able to set strategies, assess, select, develop, and reward leaders? And the execution of leadership practices. As Shri Damodar Rajanarasimha so well pointed out, that you can put out the competencies in place. How do then you continuously assess and develop people on these competencies? So what is it that these organizations are doing to look at how are they executing these leadership practices? And it was about lots of data points and more than 900 executive interviews that we conducted. And as this research very, very emphatically shows, what the leadership science in these companies is all about is one, that whatever we are doing in the area of leadership development will be strongly linked with business strategy. We won't do it because it's nice to do, we won't do it because it's good to do, but we will do it because it's the most powerful way for us to realize our financial goals and our business strategy and to implement that. Two is that we are not going to be assuming that everybody is ready for every role. We will continuously keep assessing. We will say that somebody was great in the wartime, how good will he or she be at peacetime? If somebody has to be a tight ship captain, how can we assess and rebuild and develop? So there is a continued focus on assessments. There is a customized experiential progress. There is no real one-size-fits-all. It's completely customized to what each leader needs to uniquely develop for himself. There is a lot of focus on evaluating. Are we getting the right results? Is it working? How can we make it better? There's also a lot of focus in the actual science of leadership on ensuring diversity. That if we want to operate in these markets, are we ensuring that our leadership team reflects these markets in the composition of how we as a leadership team work? And lastly, if our leadership is about being a global company, if we aspire to be seen across the world, then are we ensuring that our leadership science is focusing on global and cultural appreciation? So what do some of these research data tell us? In the top companies for leaders study that Aon Hewitt did, one, we saw a very strong link to the business strategy. All these companies put a very clear business case in investing in leadership as a strategic imperative. They say that every time they took the cost of buying a new leader, helping that leader settle into the organization, and then looking for performance metrics, the amount of actual financial performance that they lost was insurmountable. Also, the moment you keep getting a leader from outside, people within think they were not good enough. So they will put more of the energy. Yes, if they have to get a leader from outside, they will, at a key strategic imperative or when the organization wants to take a cusp. But the focus will be on building and growing leaders within. And they'll do it because it has a strong business risk or a business reason associated with why this leadership development program. One of the key metric they use is how often do we have to go outside and hire for critical positions. The moment we are doing it more than 60%, it's something that we need to worry about. 92% of the top companies who won this study were saying that they understand how the leadership strategy creates a business value for them. It's not just a strategy which has been put in place, but it is a strategy which is actually deriving value. 92% of the top companies do not let short-term financial situations impact investment in leadership. So yes, we are all going through a tough time now. Every organization or industry other than exporters are struggling to look at how well can they do. And yet, they will stay invested because this is a great time to learn something that you wouldn't have otherwise learned. So they will continue investing. Maybe it won't be in grand scale as before, but it will never be cut back or dropped out. And 84% of the top companies say that they can actually explain their return on investment on leadership development. So it's not about training programs, it's not about great tea and coffee, it's not about good food and great ambience, but it's actually about saying that these were the financial metrics that we gained when we actually invested in developing leaders. The other thing that they were doing, which we all heard of, and I think it was so well put, that there are so many of these competencies that are articulated on people management, decisiveness, emotional intelligence, what these companies do is that they actually use formal assessment process. They use these assessment processes to actually talk of leadership competencies. And once these leadership competencies are put in place, at every level, a leader undergoes assessment on how much of it is relevant, how much of it is not, how can I develop myself. At the Aditya Birla Group, they actually followed the model of saying that if we are going to go at career stages, then what changes from managing self to managing managers? What changes from managing managers to managing business? And so how do we keep assessing and, more importantly, reassessing our leaders? So no one is assumed to be born to a role. It is about earning your stripes. It's about looking at how well will I fit into and what is the areas that I will need to develop. There is also a huge culture of feedback which is internalized in this organization. They passionately use, if not the 360, at least the 90 degree of saying, let's look at what is our direct reports or our team saying about us. Very often, as we keep growing in our leadership roles, we tend to get more and more isolated from the reality. And these organizations say that is a danger we want to watch our leaders and ensure that they stay away from. So there is a constant process of feedback. Feedback is encouraged. In fact, even after every meeting, the leader will come out and say, okay, what could we have done better? And maybe you're new today, so you don't know it, but next time I want you to be ready with that. Because this is a culture of actually building it. And as I was saying, if not a 360, there is definitely a 90 degree where it is important for leaders to not keep looking into the mirror, but also keep getting pictures of them taken from the team that's reporting to them. So there is a strong weightage given to the behavioral competency. Your business performance is a given. It's something you need to do, but it has to be at the back of what we have put out as our competencies. It's important that we lay out these competencies and we assess our leaders on them. They also use customized experiential leadership development. 100% of these companies use customized leadership development for senior and middle management. And they do customized programs for high potentials. So it's not about saying that, okay, send these 20 people to some course for 2 weeks and let them come back happy. It's not about saying that, there is some off-the-shelf program, but for each one of them, how do we actively work on either identifying a mentor or looking at coaching and nurturing so that each one develops in their unique space and way, and they invest heavily in these purposeful and customized rotational programs. Participants are given exposure to different geographies, to different departments. You have to take on stretch. You have to be constantly looking at doing something you haven't done before. How do you keep learning and unlearning is the focus that's given to these leaders. They also look at converting traditionally subjective to progressively objective. What do we mean? That it is not about saying that, okay, we now have good leaders, but they measure how the leadership practices have achieved strategic objectives. If we had to get into a new business, if we had to launch a new product, were we able to do it internally with our existing leaders? How much of the work was done with some of our best people? If we identified so-and-so as an emerging leader and young leader, how much has that young leader helped and worked together to contribute to the success of this new venture? They also measure effectiveness of their succession management processes. For every critical role that we have identified, do we have internal capability? Do we have at least 2-3 people ready? A common example which ICICI Bank keeps telling us is that we had 3 equally ready CEOs. The organization has the luxury of saying that we know we'll have to choose one, but we know that all 3 are equally good, and if not with us, even if they quit, they'll go outside and set up equally successful and great organizations. But we, having invested and developed 3 equally good, have the prerogative to choose and decide who will be our leader. 92% of these top companies measure effectiveness of their leadership development process. They actively keep track of whatever they invested in. They leverage technology. They use metrics to evaluate effectiveness of investments. So if they have put in a program like this, it will be, did it yield to us what we wanted it to do? And how did we track the progress? What were the results? Did it bring in meaningful accountability? If there is a certain recruitment program that we are taking, then how many of those people have we been able to retain? If we went to a certain campus for hiring, is that campus giving us the right kind of hires that we want? How is our assessment of new recruits, actually leading to them taking on great positions later. There is also a structurally embedded future focus in terms of succession plans. 100% of the companies assess their leadership skill gaps with respect to future. So it's never about we were a great company, we were a great team, we are so great now. It is in the next coming years, in the future, how will we look? How sustainable can we be? And so how do we get all our strategic imperatives done through what comes ahead rather than what was behind? How do all the top companies ensure that you ask ready hand, the senior leaders will know what all the critical positions are. There is a mapping done of all critical positions, and for all critical positions, they will ensure that there are at least 2-3 equally ready successors who are being groomed. The big difference we found in top companies is that they don't anoint leaders, they groom leaders. So it's not about saying somebody is now going to be the vice president, but it is actually about helping that individual reach that position and look at how can, we've taken the risk of, okay, 70% ready, we'll put them in that role, but then how do we ensure that we help them settle in and manage that 30% gap? We also saw that they look at specifically identifying and nurturing successes for maybe not leadership positions, but specific critical positions. So again, there is succession planning, robust targeted talent review processes to drive accountability, and senior leaders are also assessed on attrition of identified high potential. So if you are a leader in the company, it's very important for you to be engaging and to be connecting with our identified high potentials. And so the attrition or the ensuring ring fencing of the leaders is part of the leaders scorecard. What we also saw is that they proactively ensure gender, ethnic, cross-generational and ethnic diversity in the executive team. They go out of their way to have leaders from outside the organization's headquarters company. If we are present in this geography, then even in our top team, we should have leaders representing that geography. They also encourage early careers or early responsibilities. So if we are going to be obsessed about the future, then how many of the youngsters or how many of the millennials are there in some of our strategic discussions? How often do we take their inputs? How much are we involving and including them in some of our so-called senior strategic leadership meetings? We also encourage individuals with diverse experience, and top companies have diversity as a criteria in leadership positions. Here, I'm going to take a minute to tell you of this breakthrough example that the Harvard Business School has taken with the batch of 2013. The Harvard Business School has gone out of its way to say that if we, who are supposed to be this leading business school in the world, don't proactively encourage diversity, how can we expect these students who go out and become CEOs to actively do that in the organizations that they go to? I would seriously recommend that you all go back and read that case study which Harvard Business Review has come out with. They, of course, had a diversity dean, our own Nitin Noria. Nitin Noria, as he said, I could feel what it means to not be as included as often as I need to, and hence I didn't even want to think of the gender diversity issues that we ignore. And with his support and championship, the college actually went for, in its 2013 batch, a very strong diversity campaign, and the last 2 years is what they experimented with that, and they've come out saying that you cannot be a great business school if you are not pushing things more proactively. You can't wait for diversity to happen. Similarly, as an organization, you can't wait for diversity to happen. As organization business leaders, each of us needs to put our stake in the ground and say this is what we'll champion and this is what we'll actively encourage and nurture. Lastly, what we noticed is that there is an active development of global and cultural appreciation. So at a corporate level, at an organization level, if that is our ambition, then how do we ensure that we target experience and opportunities? A leader cannot have been seen to be as a leader if you have succeeded only in one market, because as an organization, we owe it to you, we give you the opportunity to actually widen your wings and move to different geographies or to different markets and really look at how could you get that opportunity or experience? How do you blend the local with the corporate? How do you ensure that you're culturally adaptable? Because diversity is not just about certain numbers in place, but it's also about each one of us being open and being inclusive in every interaction that we have. And at an organization level, how much are we willing to think global and act local? So they have been looking at cultural agility as a key competency, saying cultural agility is paramount if we are going to be a global organization. So our leaders' success will depend on how culturally agile they are, in emerging markets especially. And so this has been built as a strategic imperative or competency into their global leader DNA and actually developing a global mindset. So given all these learnings from the top companies for leaders, as well as our significant experience in consulting in not just globally, but Aon Hewitt is also the longest consulting firm in HR space in India, what we realized is that while we looked at what our companies are doing to sustain and retain that competitive edge, at all points, organizations also need to know what to focus on. And what to focus on at Aon Hewitt, we strongly believe, is a function of you as leaders in your organization at any point of time being able to look at the know-how, the style, and the bandwidth of a leader. When these three interplay, the know-how, the style, and the bandwidth, it leads to increased effectiveness. And what we need to do at each level, what do we mean by know-how? Know-how means, do I know what it takes to do the job well? Now, this is more important for your emerging talent. So when you are looking at emerging talent, you need to have a strong point of view on, are we hiring what it takes to succeed in the organization and what it takes to succeed in the job? Because at an emerging talent level, the know-how becomes more important. Some people might say, okay, we call it technical competencies, we call it technical capabilities. We are not fussed on that. Call it what you want. In simple terms, know-how is just about knowing what it takes to do the job right. And hence, at that emerging talent level, you need to focus more on know-how. It's on your tomorrow's leaders or your future leaders that know-how and style become important. So often, you and I have experienced, we say, oh, you know, he or she is very good in what they do, but I just don't like the way they talk. So that people's sensitivity becomes such a great competency, and that's the style. So for tomorrow's leaders, you will focus on know-how, but you will focus on style as well. Because they are now beginning to impact a larger audience. They are beginning to impact your most valuable resource, which is your people. So what is the style that they are displaying? Is it constructive, or is it aggressive defensive or passive defensive? So how do you ensure more constructive styles in your tomorrow's leaders? And here is where the behavioral competency and assessment of that becomes important. At all these companies, the assessment of behavioral competencies attains great importance for the middle management, because that's when they are beginning to get into serious people management roles. It's for your top team that now we say, okay, so-and-so leader has got to where they have got because they had the know-how. So you don't need to focus on the know-how as much as you need to focus on the style and bandwidth. For senior leaders, it's how they come across, which is the style. And what is bandwidth? Bandwidth means the ability to not just pick up, but let go. At the senior leadership levels, are your leaders focusing on the right priorities? Is their bandwidth right? Are they picking up what is required at that senior level? And more importantly, are they letting go? Very often, we believe that just because I got promoted because I did something very well, I need to keep doing that very well. But I have got promoted now to take on a different role, and I need to ensure that I have my capabilities and bandwidth appropriate for that role. So we land up functioning at levels below because that's what made us successful. And bandwidth is where organizations need to focus more on coaching really, because you need to help the leader pick up and let go. At Procter & Gamble, they say the moment we have somebody as a senior leader, we expect them to spend a lot of time in mentoring. Because mentoring is key part of being a senior leader in the organization. So that much time is kept aside. That's a pickup. What do you let go? You let go micromanagement. You let go reviews. So you need to ensure that your leaders at that level have functioning at the right bandwidth, which is picking up and letting go. So at the top team at Aon Hewitt, we have strongly seen success when you focus on the style and the bandwidth. For style, there are various tools that we use to look at the assessment of competencies. Bandwidth is to really active, rigorous coaching. What should be the key takeaway now that we have perspective from some of the best organizations and our own perspective on consulting across? That one, for each of you as a senior leader, ensure that your organization has a point of view on how you want to develop your leaders. How are we going to do it at all levels? We need to have a point of view saying this is how we will do it. Having that point of view, keep measuring. You have to keep assessing, because every leader that we met, it is really about knowing where I stand, how can I get better. It is about assessing, not assuming. We make the mistake of assuming very often. Here, assess, measure, measure, measure. At the risk of being repetitive, keep measuring on whether, if these were our competencies, how are our leaders stacking up against it. Articulate and use the behavior-based leadership competencies. You need to enable your leaders to have those career conversations. So ensure that your organization has the behavioral competencies, and more importantly, they are being used by your leaders to have career conversations on how to progress in the organization. Identify metrics to evaluate effectiveness of your key leadership investments. Ensure that we in HR don't say, okay, we've got the art right and we are doing it very well, we'll see. Look at ways in which we can actually put a measurement system in place. Keep assessing the strength of your succession plan. Ensure that you bring in a talent review process. It might be time consuming, but everyone, the leader and the organization, comes out richer with this whole process. To conclude, this was actually, again, a point but look at the diversity of your leadership group. Be very cautious as senior leaders that are we hiring people, everyone who's alike? Are we really representing the right kind of range that we need to function in as an organization? So, to summarize or to end, I'm going to conclude with what we began with. This was the invite as well, which we had sent out, and this is Warren Bennis, who's considered a foremost thought leader and advisor to 4 US presidents, that the most dangerous leadership myth is that leaders are born, that there is a genetic factor to leadership. The myth asserts that people simply either have certain charismatic qualities or not. That's nonsense. In fact, the opposite is true. Leaders are made, and they are made through as much sweat, blood, hard work, like anything else that we put our passion and effort in. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the distinguished panel, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Radhika, for such an enlightening and lively session. As a token of our gratitude, I request Professor K.K. Sinha, Chairperson, HR Area and Center for Management Development at BIMTech, to please hand over a memento to Radhika. Thank you, Radhika. Thank you, Professor Sinha. The last session for the evening will bring out the various perspectives on is your leadership science right? Science has been defined as careful observation in the course of forming and testing of ideas, subject to a questioning community. Art is defined as the modification of things by human skill to achieve form, function, and meaning. Although specialization often requires high levels of expertise, these general definitions have the potential to embrace the activities of all sorts of people in organizations, including leaders. I think that most of us accept leadership as both an art and a science, practicing it with all the knowledge and experience at our disposal. But science and art often seem opposite. They tend to be disconnected in our educational systems, workplaces, and communities. And many scientists are warning that science is under attack from those who regard it as a set of opinions rather than a source of objective truth. Can science and art thus be so readily mixed in the practice of leadership? If we value the objectivity of science, can it really